You think you're afraid of the nuclear bomb, the pandemic, the asteroid? Wrong, dead wrong. The real apocalypse isn't arriving on ICBMs or in biolabs. It's already here, hanging above your head like a guillotine blade made of copper wire and good intentions. Your power grid is a crystal cathedral built on quicksand, and 3 coordinated rifle shots at the right equipment can bring the whole thing crashing down. Not for an hour, not for a day, for weeks, maybe months. And here's the punchline that'll freeze the smile right off your face. It's happened before. It's happening now, and the infrastructure remains vulnerable despite warnings from experts. December 3rd, 2022, Moore County, North Carolina. 2 electrical substations get hit with gunfire around 7 in the evening. Nearly 24 shell casings from a high-powered rifle. 45,000 people plunged into darkness. An 87-year-old woman, Karen Zoanelli, dies when her oxygen machine stops working. Her death was later ruled a homicide by the state medical examiner. 5 days without power during a cold snap. 5 days of watching your smart home become your tomb. The attackers? Still out there. Still free 3 years later. Still proving a point that should terrify you. Your entire civilization runs on infrastructure so vulnerable that motivated individuals with decent aim could bring it to its knees. Here's what they don't tell you in those cute prepper forums where everyone's debating which tactical backpack matches their personality. The Moore County attack wasn't an anomaly. It was a preview. Weeks before Moore County, in November 2022, a substation in Maysville, North Carolina was damaged by shooting. Then in January 2023, another substation in Randolph County was hit by gunfire. In June 2024, a Durham substation was damaged, leaving around 700 customers without power. This isn't random vandalism. This is a pattern, and the pattern is accelerating. Now here's where it gets fun, and by fun, I mean absolutely nightmare-inducing. Before I go further, if you're finding this information valuable and you want to make sure you don't miss the next dose of reality that could save your life, hit that subscribe button and drop a like on this video. Seriously, the algorithm doesn't care about your survival, but it does care about engagement. And the more people see this, the more people might actually prepare before it's too late. Your thumb can do that much, right? Let me explain something about electricity that your utility company really doesn't want you to understand. Electricity is not stored in any meaningful way at the grid level. Read that again. There is no warehouse full of kilowatt hours waiting to be deployed when things go sideways. The entire electrical grid operates on a just-in-time delivery system that makes Amazon look like a medieval supply chain. Every single second of every single day, supply and demand must be perfectly balanced. In the United States, the grid operates at precisely 60 Hz. That frequency must remain stable within incredibly tight tolerances, or the whole system starts to wobble like a drunk tightrope walker. When generation exceeds demand, frequency rises. When demand exceeds generation, frequency drops. And when that frequency hits critical ranges, emergency protocols kick in and parts of the grid start shutting down to prevent total collapse. It's physics, and physics doesn't negotiate. This is why 3 rifle shots at the right location matter. This is why a targeted attack on just a handful of substations can cascade into a regional blackout. In Moore County, the 230 kilovolt transmission lines coming into the area both connected to the West End substation. Most of Moore County had 2 links to the broader power grid, and both of them ran through that single substation. When you design a system with a single point of failure, you're not building infrastructure. You're building a death trap with extra steps. Duke Energy couldn't reroute power because the geography of the grid didn't allow for switching options that would work in other locations. The power had to stay off until the damaged equipment could be repaired or replaced. That's not robust, that's rigid. It's a house of cards held together by software, transformers, and the assumption that nobody will be crazy enough to actually test its limits. In 2024, 5 men, including 3 former Marines who had been stationed at Camp Lejeune, were sentenced for planning substation attacks in the Pacific Northwest. A Tennessee man was arrested in 2024 for plotting to attack an energy facility with explosives. The threat isn't theoretical anymore, it's operational. And the concerning part? Similar to the 2013 California Metcalf substation attack that caused $15 million in damage, these attacks demonstrate knowledge of vulnerable points in the grid. The playbook is public, the targets are obvious, the defenses remain inadequate. Here's the cold, brutal math. The Texas freeze of February 2021 killed at least 246 people officially, with researchers suggesting the real number could be closer to 700 or even over 1,000. Most died of hypothermia, not outside in the snow, cosplaying as Jack London characters, inside their homes, in their beds, in their living rooms. Indoor temperatures dropped to dangerous levels. People with medical conditions that required electricity-dependent equipment, oxygen concentrators, ventilators, dialysis machines died when the power went out. These weren't homeless people caught unprepared. These were your neighbors, your family, people who thought walls and a roof were enough. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when the grid goes down and stays down. Hour 1, you lose power. No big deal, right? You've got flashlights. You've got candles. You're thinking this is just like that time the power went out for 2 hours last summer. Hour 6, your phone is dying. Your refrigerator is warming up. If it's winter, your house is getting cold. If it's summer, it's getting hot. No electricity means no pumps, which means no water pressure in most municipal systems. If you've got a gas heater with an electronic ignition, it's just an expensive paperweight now. Hour 12. The toilets might stop flushing because municipal water systems need electricity to run pumps. Your smart home is now a dumb box. Every IoT device, every thermostat, every security camera, dead weight. Day 2. Grocery stores can't process card payments. ATMs don't work. Gas stations can't pump fuel without electricity. The food in your refrigerator is spoiling. If you're on medication that requires refrigeration, like insulin, you're watching your lifeline degrade in real time. People start getting desperate. History shows us what happens: looting, chaos. The social contract starts to fray when basic needs aren't met. Day 3. Hospitals are running on backup generators, assuming they have fuel. Most hospitals have enough fuel for 3 to 7 days maximum. After that, they're making triage decisions that would make a battlefield medic weep. People on home medical equipment face immediate life-threatening situations. The Texas freeze showed us this in brutal clarity. When the oxygen concentrator goes silent, you've got the battery backup if you're lucky. Most portable oxygen concentrators run for 2 to 6 hours on a single battery. Maybe longer if you've got extras and you're not exerting yourself. And then what? You hope the power comes back? You pray harder? Day 7, if the power's still out, you're in full collapse mode. The veneer of civilization has been peeled back like sunburned skin. Water supplies are contaminated or non-existent. Sewage systems are backing up. Disease is spreading. The people who didn't prepare are now looking at the people who did. And they're hungry, and they're cold, and they're desperate. The social contract dissolves faster than sugar in hot water when people can't feed their kids or keep them warm. Here's the sick joke about all of this. The industry has spares and redundancy for equipment, and utilities work together to share equipment. But in a widespread attack, supply chain challenges emerge. Some specialized equipment like large transformers have lead times measured in years to replace. Duke Energy has acknowledged that the Moore County substations were just below the level where tougher protection measures are required by regulation. Translation: we know it's vulnerable, but fixing it costs money, and nobody wants to pay for it until after the disaster happens. After the Moore County attacks, Duke Energy announced plans to build a third substation in the area to provide additional redundancy and the ability to reroute power during disruptions. Great, one new substation in one county. Meanwhile, there are more than 55,000 substations across the United States, most of them protected by a chain link fence and maybe a camera. So what do? Because here's the thing, you can't unknow this now. You can't just pretend the grid is safe and go back to worrying about your fantasy football league. First, understand that a generator is both a solution and a problem. Gas generators are loud. They're essentially neon signs that say, "I have power and resources," to everyone within earshot. They also require fuel, which means you need to store gasoline, which is both dangerous and has a shelf life. If you're going to use a generator, you need to think about noise discipline, fuel storage, and operational security. Run it sparingly. Run it at irregular intervals. Don't advertise. Better options exist for specific needs. Portable battery-powered stations can keep medical equipment running without announcing your location to the neighborhood. These are quieter, safer indoors for certain applications and can keep an oxygen concentrator or CPAP running. They require planning, though. You need to keep them charged. You need to understand runtime versus wattage. An oxygen concentrator on a high setting might pull around 100 watts. Do the math. How many hours do you have? What's your backup plan when the battery dies? Heating without electricity is physics, not politics. Kerosene heaters work. Propane heaters work. Both require ventilation to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning, which has killed people during power outages. Wood stoves work if you have them installed properly and have seasoned firewood. Blankets work. Layering works. Hypothermia doesn't care about your excuses. Your body temperature is around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When it drops below 95, you're in hypothermia territory. You start shivering uncontrollably. Your thinking gets fuzzy. You make bad decisions. You might even feel warm and start taking off clothes. A phenomenon called paradoxical undressing. It's happened to people who froze to death in their own homes. Water is non-negotiable. No power means no pumps in most systems. No pumps means no water pressure. You need stored water. At least 1 gallon per person per day, minimum. More if you're smart. You need a way to purify water if municipal supplies become contaminated. Boiling works if you have a heat source. Filtration works if you have the right filters. Chemical treatment works if you have the chemicals. But you need to have these things before the emergency, not during. Cash is king when the grid is down. ATMs don't work. Card readers don't work. That digital money in your bank account might as well be monopoly money if there's no electricity to access it. Have physical cash on hand. Small bills. You're not buying a car. You're buying bread and water and maybe securing cooperation when systems have failed. Think hundreds, not thousands, unless you're planning something entirely different. In which case, you've got bigger problems than I can solve in a YouTube video. Food that doesn't require refrigeration or cooking is survival gold. Canned goods, dried goods, protein bars, peanut butter. The stuff that makes nutritionists cry but keeps you alive. Calories are survival. Taste is a luxury for people with working kitchens. I've got an entire video on food storage and emergency nutrition on this channel already, so check that out for the detailed breakdown. The short version: rotate your stock, eat the oldest stuff first, replace as you go. It's not hoarding, it's planning. Medical supplies and medications. If you're on prescription medication, talk to your doctor about getting an emergency supply. If you need refrigeration for medication like insulin, you need a plan that involves ice, coolers, and a realistic understanding of how long you can keep things cold without power. Over-the-counter medications for pain, fever, potential infection, first aid supplies, tourniquets, hemostatic agents, the stuff that stops bleeding before you bleed out. Because when the grid is down, emergency services are overwhelmed or non-existent. Information is survival. A battery-powered or hand-crank radio lets you hear what's happening without relying on your dead phone. Local AM/FM stations will broadcast emergency information if there's anyone left to broadcast. NOAA weather radio will give you updates if the infrastructure is still functioning. Know your local emergency frequencies. Know where to go if you need to evacuate. Know where not to go. Security is uncomfortable to talk about, but it's reality. When people are desperate, they do desperate things. Locks only work if people respect laws, and laws require enforcement, and enforcement requires a functioning society. I'm not telling you to turn your home into a fortress. I'm telling you to think about layers, reinforced doors, window locks. Awareness, if nothing else. Most threats are opportunistic, not professional. Make yourself a harder target than your neighbor, and the threat moves on. It's cold logic, but it's survival logic. Community matters more than you think. The lone wolf survivalist is a myth sold by people who've never actually survived anything. You need people. Trustworthy people. People who bring skills to the table. Medical knowledge, mechanical skills, organizational ability. A neighborhood that works together has a better chance than individuals hoarding supplies in isolation. But choose your community carefully. Trust is earned in normal times, not granted in emergencies. Here's the truth they won't tell you on the news. The grid is vulnerable, the threats are documented and ongoing, and response times during major outages can stretch into days or weeks. The Moore County attack remains unsolved 3 years later. That should tell you something about how hard these attacks are to prevent and investigate after the fact. The smart approach isn't hoping the government fixes the problem before the next incident. The smart approach is being prepared for when, not if, your local grid experiences a prolonged outage, because eventually it will. Weather, aging infrastructure, targeted attack, or simple cascade failure. The question isn't whether you'll face a prolonged power outage. The question is whether you'll be one of the people who survives it, or one of the statistics that gets quietly added to official reports months later. Now here's the part where I have to say the responsible thing, because I'm not trying to replace professional advice with internet information. For specific emergency protocols, regulations, and preparedness guidelines in your area, you absolutely need to consult with local emergency management agencies, your state's Department of Health, FEMA regional offices, and other relevant government resources. They'll have information tailored to your region, your specific infrastructure vulnerabilities, and your local risks. I'm giving you the framework and the wake-up call. They'll give you the official local details and requirements. Use both. Take their guidance seriously. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Because when the lights go out and stay out, you're the first responder. You're the emergency service. You're the only thing standing between your family and a situation that could turn deadly in hours, not days. The grid is more fragile than most people realize. You don't have to be. Stay safe, stay prepared, and remember, infrastructure vulnerability is real. The threats are documented. And being prepared isn't paranoia. It's physics meeting reality. Don't let ignorance be what costs you when the power dies.